Yvonne's not here, right? We're lined up.
Good. How about yourself?
How are you? Good, thank you. Oh,
Don't
okay.
pull my plug that time.
Oh, yeah. Can you imagine? I see that person.
I don't think.
I didn't like it.
Good evening. Today is January 24th. This is a special call board meeting of the South San Antonio Independent School District Board of Trustees. And the time is 6 p.m. This time, could we please have roll call?
Mrs. Mandy Martinez,
Present.
Mr. Luis Ibarra Jr., Mr. Homer Flores,
Here.
Ms. Shirley Ibarra Peña, Mrs. Connie Prado,
Present.
Mr. Gilbert Rodriguez,
Present.
Mrs. Elda Flores.
Present. Thank you. The first item and the only item on this agenda is the workshop. And this workshop is a workshop to review and discuss the repurposing of closed campuses. And there's no action or presentation only on this workshop. Dr. Flores.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Well, first and foremost, I'd like to welcome everybody who's here in attendance today. Thank you so much for coming into our special workshop. I know that the topic of what to do with our recently closed campuses and how we can repurpose them or somehow reestablishing them has been a topic of high interest. And so this is a workshop designed for us to start getting a better understanding of all the details and the foundations that go within, and then how we can proceed moving forward so that we can work in the best interest of the district. So what we're going to start with in the first slide that we have is we want to just talk about what, we'll start off with our call to action. So if everybody would just please stand. Students enjoy successful education experiences, empowering them to make decisions while enriching their lives in the future they create. Thank you. So as we move forward, one of the things that we want to talk about is the purpose of what tonight's workshop is. And the purpose for tonight's workshop is to just begin reviewing the facts and the figures and the current needs of the district in order to prepare for future discussions and the potential repurposing of the currently closed campuses. That is the essential point. And what we're going to begin with tonight, the agenda as we review the contents of the presentation. We're going to begin by reviewing the current enrollment trends and the campus capacity. And for that, we're going to have Ms. Denise Orozco. Ma'am?
Thank you, sir. I know what y'all are wondering is how I get the most exciting slides all the time, but what I'm going to be reviewing tonight for is the capacity and enrollment trends. Basically, the enrollment trends show the decrease or increase within the district. We're actually going to be looking all the way back to 2012 and 13 through the current school year. So let me explain first what we're looking at, because all three of the school levels follow this model. So what we're looking at is we're looking at a presentation given back in the school year 15-16 from a demography study. What I want to point out are just all the different lines that are on the slide. So we have the red line. The red line is the actual enrollment for the district for each of these years. What then we have are the three lines that are separate. Those were the lines that were presented from the demography study. So what the demographer, Dr. Harner, presented is he started with a low projection for the district, a mid projection, and then a high projection. So, but the most important part of this slide that I'd like to point out is that we started our actual decrease in enrollment in 2013-14 school year. And then as we get further closer, because the most immediate years preceding us right now, we actually were below Dr. Harner's lowest projections. So how does this enrollment trend actually affect us financially? So we use an approximation of $6,500 per student, and we lose that money when the student moves out of our district. So and like I said, each of these grade levels is going to follow this same format. So what we're looking at in the column for 16-17 is when I look at the P's number from the previous year, we lost at the elementary level 177 students. So that actually equaled out to $1,150,500. I'm not going to go through each year, but if you go to the final column, what you see for the actual change from 16-17 to 18-19 is you see a loss of 558 students, resulting in a lost revenue of $3,627,000.
I know that this is, you're focusing on the total elementary enrollment capacity.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have a breakdown of what the enrollment is at the campuses that were closed?
I do not have the breakdown of that right now. I can get it, but I have it in my email.
Because I think I remember, this is why we're here, is to discuss the repurpose of those campuses and to get the data for those particular campuses. And I know that you have to get you're looking at the whole picture, but what we're focusing on is what we're going to do with the three campuses that are going to close.
So you would like the total, the enrollment on at least last, or how
That's
many? Okay.
elementary
The
and
last.
Hazen, and then the last time that was campus was in existence, that thing, if you have the data,
Okay.
the data you have for what's campus.
I will let you send.
We can't hear you very well now.
What I'm asking, can you hear me now? Oh, better? Okay. What I'm asking for is a breakdown of the three campuses that we're looking for to repurpose, because that's why we're here, is to discuss the repurpose of those three campuses. So this gives us a breakdown of all the campuses. So I think it would be good information for us to see what is the data for the particular elementary, the particular middle school, which is Athens, Hazen, and what was the data history of this campus when it was in existence.
And I would think the way the presentation was formatted currently is as we are currently enrolled with current facts and figures. So right now, as part of the presentation, we don't have the information at the time of whenever the campus was open, but we have it because based on where we stand today.
Right. Now, if I may, Madam President, no, I'm in complete agreement. First and foremost, we want to be compliant with the law. So the agenda specifically states, and I concur with Madam President, that it states specifically a workshop on repurposing of the closed campuses. So I would assume, or my expectation would be that if we close those campuses, and the reasoning behind that, that data should be readily available. That's what should be presented today. And also, Madam President, Mr. Superintendent, Dr. Flores, so if we're going to continue to flip through these slides, and if the data that we're going to be presented is not specifically related to the closed campuses that we are here to discuss the repurposing for, then I would tend to think that we're not compliant from a legal perspective in discussing this, and we can actually refer to our legal counsel here to make sure that I'm in alignment and that I'm communicating the accurate information.
Okay, and Mr. O'Hanlon, I know that you're here. I guess the question is, the posting on the agenda is to discuss repurposing of closed campuses. So if we're going to discuss the capacities and the figures of the entire district, then maybe it should have been posted differently?
The information is within what is posting, so you can discuss it. Whether or not it's relevant to your decision-making process would be up to you. But it's not a legal impediment. It may not answer the questions that you want to answer. It's not a legal impediment with this presentation.
Okay.
Yeah, Ms. Flores.
Yes, question to Dr. Flores. The intent to give us this broad information
Right.
district-wide, so that all of us know the amount of revenue lost with the total amount of students. Was that the intent for this information that we're getting?
Exactly. The intent is to get a baseline understanding of where we currently stand as an organization. Because as we consider the possibility of reopening campuses, there's a cost that is tied to that. There's an academic impact, a financial impact, a sustainability impact. And so from the perspective of the administration is that we look at it from the point of where is our baseline? Where do we stand today? Because the endeavor that we're going to take on eventually moving forward is designed and based on where we stand today and the constraints that we stand today. So we find this information highly relevant to the decision, any decisions made moving forward.
And to make it clear in my mind, what I heard you say is that whatever decision will be made so that we know what the revenue amount that's available, how it's going to affect the entire district.
Right. And again, the purpose of the workshop is to have a discussion and to go ahead and talk about, get a good baseline understanding, and then figure out how we want to proceed moving forward as a group and as a team. So that as long as it's feasible, and as long as this is something that we can definitely sustain, then by all means, let's go ahead and move forward in that direction. But I think it behooves us to do our due diligence, and part of it is to go ahead and look at where we stand today as we look to the future.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Flores. Any other comments to Dr. Flores? I'm looking at your presentations, Dr. Flores. I agree, the data overall to find out where we are financially with the campuses and the enrollment, but you also have slides of roof projects for Palo Alto, Kindred, the baseball stadium, the scoreboard, the track and field. How does the rooftops at Palo Alto and Kindred, what do they have to do with the reopening of Athens, Kaysen, and West Campus?
Well, it all ties back into the financial sustainability of it. As we do have currently campuses in operation, and we do currently have students in our schools, it behooves us to also consider those pieces as we move forward, because they are going to have to be addressed.
Absolutely.
And so we want to make sure that we just start making highly educated decisions as to where we stand today and the kinds of endeavors that we want to proceed moving forward.
Right. And maybe, I'm glad that you've done this. Obviously, you've done a lot of work. It seems
Oh,
like
it was not me, it was the entire team. Yeah.
it looks like it was more of a facilities needs assessment as just a focus on what is it going to take to reopen Athens, what is it going to take to reopen Kaysen, and what is it going to take to reopen West Campus. And this is good information to have, don't get me wrong, and I know it's a lot of work, but maybe this is information that we should receive at a different workshop where we're discussing the needs of the
Right.
district in an assessment,
And-
not so much on the repurposing of the schools.
Sure. And the intent was to establish a baseline, a foundation understanding of the data of where we stand today. And then from that point, what do we look like moving forward? And to develop a well thought out, well hashed out plan for reopening, repurposing those campuses, whatever the plan may be. This is not something that I believe that unilaterally I can make, because I still think that it behooves us to gain broad stakeholder input and to develop, because if we're talking about plans that have been made, if any decisions have been made in the past in haste, we want to change that trend. So we definitely want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence as we move forward. So we consider this, the administrative team definitely considers this relevant data and relevant information so that we can make sound decisions and sound recommendations.
Is there going to be a presentation here of the individual 3 campuses that we're addressing to say, these are the facility improvements it's going to need, and these are the costs for those particular campuses? Is that somewhere in here?
The presentation holds what we are including in there. We're including the process to be developed so we can proceed with looking at all those costs and obviously the availability programs that we're making.
Okay, so there's no actual breakdown to tell the board, this is what it's going to cost to
Right.
take to refurbish Athens, Kazan, and
Yes.
maybe reopen West Campus. This is how much money we're looking at, and
Right.
this is what's going to need to be done. There's
Well,
nothing
if
to show
you
there.
just give the presentation an opportunity, there are a couple of slides in there you can see where we talk about what it typically takes, the process that it takes to reopen or repurpose a campus in general. So that is included in the presentation, which also includes the recommendation that I would give as far as the next steps moving forward, so that we can move on with that process.
Okay, then I'll refrain from more questions until you give me your side. Thank you.
That would be great. Thank you.
Before we move to the next slide, were we done with this slide here?
Yes.
Okay, so the campuses were closed prior to the 2017 year, is that correct? We were not open for 2017, right? So the drop in enrollment from 4959 to 4518, would it be attributed to closing those 3 campuses, that big drop?
This is just elementary right now.
Okay, so we
So
closed one
we're
elementary.
breaking it up, and then I'll have a whole district area.
So is that a yes or no?
I can't say that that's itself a yes, just because of closing, because when we look at transfer reports from the PEMS, that you can get through TA as well, it shows a list of where the students are going, and I'm not sure about the breakdown of the grades, whether or not it was specifically at the elementary level.
Right, because once you get into more granular level, we can start seeing that certain kids.
I can definitely.
Yeah, which is extremely relevant, right? Getting that granular, because we're specifically talking about one elementary, one middle school, and one high school. So absolutely.
And again, this is why the conversation is designed to get the conversation started, so that it'll give us an idea as to what the next workshop would look like, and we can start focusing our attention on certain aspects of that.
Follow-up question. How long would it take to get that data?
It would probably take, I'd have to go into historical because of when both schools ended, and then actually following up and with the individual students, probably a week maybe of getting it, because some of it's going to have to be done by hand. And just do it.
Yes, ma'am. I remember your expressions from last night's presentation.
And mind you, they still have day jobs, we still have
Right,
a district to run on a daily. This is why it's not just as simple
Right.
as, run home and get it.
Right.
We still have to work with it, the responsibilities we have.
I understand the additional legwork, but from a technology standpoint, all that data is sitting in a database somewhere,
Yes.
and we just query it, and they give us back results. Now you gotta go through the process of, whatever it is to.
And the
get
student
results.
information system we use, yes, it's not as robust, yes, as of what you're talking about.
Right.
I wish-
That's a fundamental
I wish it were.
explanation. Got it. Okay,
Sorry.
thank you.
Thank you. If I can piggyback on.
Yes, Ms. Flores.
Thank you. If I can piggyback on what Mr. Rodriguez's questions were, that year, going back to year 2016, 2017, is that the year that IDEA opened up schools as well in our area? Their first grades?
They opened, in the area, I believe they opened up last year, so they're in the second year.
Second
The
year?
ones, the idea had already existed in San
Yes.
Antonio,
But
but
down
for
the
in our
street
backyard, yes, it
and
was 17, 18, so it was after.
after, one year afterwards,
Yes.
but IDEA schools existed
Yes.
regardless? Okay.
Actually, if I may interject here, Ms. Flores, when the decision was made to close the campuses, Athens and Kazan, idea was parked at our schools, ready to open for the fall, registering our kids because they had already heard that the board was closing our schools. So, yes, the decline in enrollment had to do with the closure of the elementary, because that's what we're looking at now, and 250, and Ms. Flores, Dr. Saavedra gave that number. We lost 250 kids to IDEA, because I think we lost at least 200 to 300. So we actually, when we closed our schools, we handed them over to IDEA. They were just signing them up like crazy. And if we don't do something now, and they're adding more buildings, we're going to hand more kids over to IDEA. That's why I think this is important, this workshop that we have, so we can get the ball moving, so we can keep our kids and not lose them to Southwest or John Jay or Legacy or IDEA. So we need to do something quickly.
It is possible to go ahead and pull up data that actually shows exactly just how many kids transferred into IDEA. So that is something that we definitely prep for the
And I mean, this is huge. This is a huge part of the discussion of how we're going to move forward, right? Enrollment. So one thing that I've always asked, even when I was sitting in the audience watching board meetings, was yes, kids are leaving and enrollment was dropping. And the question that I never ever really got a direct answer for was why? Why are we losing kids? So then put the bigger parent hat on and say, okay, so why parents, why would they disenroll their kids and take them somewhere else, specifically IDEA, right? So quality of instruction, right? Choices that we have. Issues on the campuses, issues with understanding curriculum. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Bullying in the schools, whatever the case may be, parents have those additional concerns, and those are part of the criteria that they base their decisions on. So from a parent perspective, and now as a board member, I would like to find out why is it that our kids left. You know, I know that we have a process by which they, you know, hopefully tell us where they're going, right? But if we have access to that data, and how do we take an approach of reaching out and saying, hey, what, or maybe we have that data available to us already. What was the reason behind parents disenrolling their students, their kids, and taking them somewhere else? In a lot of instances, we have to think like parents. So that is a huge question that's going to contribute to answering why we have these huge, or this trending low enrollment. I think it's very important. And going forward, maybe it's some, you know, being proactive instead of reactive. To this point, and as a board member and as a parent, we're always reactive. We're always reacting. We wait for something to happen that triggers for us to, now we got to react, instead of proacting. And from a financial perspective, that can have a tremendous impact on whether we're prepared to deal with specific things or not. So my input, my first piece of input is we need to, I, as well as everybody else, needs to take the approach of being proactive versus reactive. We're reacting right now. We're reacting, and the decline in enrollment obviously equals a decline in revenue. So how do we change that? How do we get our kids to come back? That will be the first step in increasing enrollment. You know, I'm a half class full kind of guy, and in our conversations, I like to attack a concern or an issue of how can we get this done, rather than these are the reasons why we can't, and these are the reasons why we're not. That's not a productive, proactive approach. That's going to elevate our district and put us in a position so our students are not just exceeding expectations. That's huge for me as a parent. We don't want to just be mediocre, we want to exceed expectations. And if we show our parents, our district community that we strive for exceeding, that's going to change.
And that's precisely where we have in the workshop, so we can
Right.
start developing a process that's going to be proactive in nature.
Right. So we should already have a list of things that hasn't worked, right? We should already know, to some extent, why this happened. Again, the why. Why is this happening?
So why are we talking about all these different things when we've got West Campus, when we're supposed to be doing West Campus? The opening West Campus, it was closed a long time ago by Mr. Gerber, made sure that happened. Why are we discussing the things that happened so long after West Campus was closed?
If I may interject here, we're going to allow the staff to make a presentation, and then it'll be my privilege, I will allow any questions from the community at the end of the presentation, if that's all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So again, just to remind the format, the red line shows the actual numbers, and then the segmented part is the study. What I do want to show is that between 2016, 17, and 17, 18, we saw a drop of 124 students. Yes, that was when IDEA opened up. So, and we know that. We were there, we saw what was happening. What I'd like to point out, though, is when you look at the next section between 17, 18, and 18, 19, we cut that number in half. It went from 124 only to 61 middle school students leaving, and that is when we offered the choice academy at the middle school. So in that term, we began to look at the whys and open that up, choices. We canvassed the community and we answered them with the academies, and so then we cut it in half, which was fabulous, fabulous news. So again, same format with the monies. Since I already explained the format of it, what I'm going to do is jump to the last column and the change. So for the middle school totals, we're looking at 16, 17, 18, 19. We had the revenue loss, total revenue loss was $1,202,500. Now going to the high school trend, what we're looking at here, and this one looks a little bit messier, and that's because at the high school, as we have discussed in the past, we have seen an increase. So what we're looking at first, I want to start off for the 13-14 school year. That we see an increase going up at 24-32. That is when we opened up the renovated high school. So that's when everything opened up with the new facilities. But then we continue to see an increase, and that was our first year of our early college high school program. And then we continue to see an increase for the high school. There's one small little dip. I don't have an explanation for that right now, but I'll look into it. But the rest of the years, we actually we move up into Dr. Harner's high projection area. So unlike the other slides on the high school, because we're not losing students and we're keeping them, what we actually are seeing, or where we are getting that revenue back. So what we're looking at, it's the same format here, except like I said, this time there's an increase in revenue. However, it was not as significant as the losses, unfortunately. So we're looking at a change of about 70 students, and so we earned a revenue of $455,000. So now, I know those were the parts, but I know sometimes we just like to look at the district as a whole. So again, it's just all the numbers we already looked at, so I'm not going to take too much time on it, but I do want to again point out that we overall are below Dr. Harner's projections as a district and where we're at. The total revenue loss, district-wide impact, was $4,374,500.
That's cumulative?
Yes, ma'am. So going into the capacity trend is looking at something different than the enrollment trend. What the capacity trend is looking at is a facility study. So what we're looking at is the capacity of each of our campuses. So the first one we're looking at is for elementary. So what I want to show you is that unlike looking in the past, we're looking at current numbers right now. So the way we read this is that we have our 2018-19 enrollment, and this comes from our key snapshot. That's the last Friday in October. It takes a picture of the school district itself. So not only just the count of the students, but like we discussed in paper last night, where all the demographics are. It's all based on that one date. Then we look at the actual campus capacity. This is based on the facility study that was done. And so this was presented again with the original, with Dr. Harner's report as well. So we're looking at the campus capacity, and just FYI that I do know some of you know the numbers and your students are at the campuses. What I want to point out is that it's seen through those, the organization's eyes, regardless of our workers' eyes. And so it doesn't necessarily take into account some of the needs that some of the rooms have down. We have our computer labs, we may have a life skills unit that may only house 8 students in it to serve them appropriately. And so we want to make sure that we keep that in mind too. So our 2089 and our present usage of the campuses is what's showing. You can see the lowest usage percentage is at Kindred with 47%, and then Five Palms at 79%. And I'm pointing out Five Palms as well, because what we would like to make sure though is that even though it's 79%, we don't ever want to get to 100%. So, you know, a good safe margin would be 85%, because we want room to grow. We want room for when these houses are starting to give, when we do get more students in, not on this downward trend. We do have the room at all of these campuses to house these students.
Okay, I have a question.
Sure.
I don't know who conducted this study,
Uh-huh.
but there was a study done by Garza Baumberger, who were the architects, and I hope you found the information, because I haven't.
Yes.
The study was done based on the capacity of the time that these schools were built. Athens was the oldest school in the district, and that was built 70 years now, 1948. So you can't expect to be at 100% capacity at any of these facilities because of the time that they were built. Schools nowadays, especially elementaries, are being built for a capacity of 400 or 500 kids. They're not building 2-story buildings anymore for elementaries. So you cannot say, well, they're not at capacity, so we don't make the school. I mean, that's just an unfair statement, because there's no way you're going to reach capacity. It's just not going to happen.
And we wouldn't want to be at 100%.
Absolutely, but then you're given the comparison on the percentages, well, some are lower than the other, I understand that. But it's not about the capacity, it's the enrollment. I mean, look at the number of kids at each of the campuses, and that'll tell you, I'd like to see what Athens was. It's only been closed a year, maybe a year and a half. So where is the enrollment for Athens before it closed? It would have been good to have seen that before it closed, in a comparison with all the other elementaries.
Also, the snapshot that occurred from the last Friday of October?
Yes, sir.
Are there any subsequent snapshots?
No, sir, that's the only time it's done in the year.
And that's initiated by who?
PEA.
Okay, and can we request snapshots? Is there an associated cost for doing that?
No, we actually do it, we submit it to the state, and everyone in the state does it on the same day.
Right.
And then that's what everything is based on, accountability results, the paper, all of that. To do another snapshot necessarily wouldn't be to the state, it would be an informal type of.
Right, to get the numbers, to get the snapshots of enrollment as we go
Tell me
along.
what it is on Valentine's Day.
Right. So is it fair to say that these enrollment trends are from every snapshot of every Friday, every year in October?
Yes, the snapshot is always the last Friday in October.
Okay, and there is no snapshot a few days before school's over with? Or, and then that's, okay.
That's how the state uses to determine.
Right, no, I understand, but if we're talking
No, it's
specifically
not.
about enrollment, we want to be as accurate as we can.
Yes.
Okay,
And that's why I always refer to it, a snapshot every year, because I always am referring back to the means part of it, what drives everything. And so I always refer back to snapshot, and when I have it available, at the beginning of the year, I didn't have it, because it's not available.
no, I understand, I'm learning the process as we go, the snapshot of, but my curiosity is, we want to know as we progress, where we're at as
The
far
board
as.
members get a weekly attendance report.
Right, but I'm referring specifically to what she just explained.
And just to keep up with just a snapshot part, that October is historically the highest. It's kind of that age, it's all the students are in by that time into the school. We have those late starters sometimes, but October, the last Friday in October is usually the highest. And then we sometimes see a drop off after that throughout the rest of the school.
And then also, I have a lot of times we got transient students that come into your school, they're there for a month or 2, then they leave. So that's why the state uses that one specific date.
Right, and then there's some that come and stay,
Yes.
right?
Yes, sir. They do.
Thank you.
One of the other things I wanted to point out, because I, having, remembering my teacher days, I want to point out the number of teachers at each of the campus because I want to show the student-to-teacher ratio average as well. Because in my notes, I even put a little heart by because these student-teacher ratios are great. 16 to 1, 15 to 1, 17, those are great numbers. And I felt they were important to show and share.
Remind you that that's an average, right?
Yes,
Because
exactly.
one of our teachers don't understand.
So, last question on that
Yeah, go
slide,
ahead.
referring to a snapshot.
Sure.
So, the previous superintendent last year forecasted drop in enrollment of 500 students. So is it fair to say that he used the snapshot to project that? Or do we have any information on how he came to that forecast?
I don't know.
Because as we know, it turned out to be grossly inflated and nowhere near being accurate. So that's the concern.
I'm not aware, sir, but.
Okay.
And neither am I, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so moving on to the middle school. Again, it has the 3 open campuses right now. And we're looking at the different capacities of the campuses right now, the percent usage, and then the number of teachers, along with the student-teacher ratio as well. And as I say before, ultimately, you don't want to be over the 85% threshold because you want that room for expansion, new programs. And then looking at the high school, what we have is we have our total enrollment right now, along with the campus capacity. The percent usage right now is at 69%. We have the percentage, the number of teachers is 157. And our student-to-teacher ratio average is 17 to 1. And again, that's average.
That's not true.
And that ends my section of the report.
All right, next we're going to have Mr. Schuman and Mr. Caceres speak on some of the current operational things that are requesting for us to move into as early as next week.
Madam President, I'd like to make a suggestion, excuse me, Dr. Flores.
Yes, Mr. Rodriguez.
The words community engagement, vetting, stakeholders, would it be fair and beneficial that as we go through the presentations, at the end of one presentation, to afford questions on that specific presentation, so that way if it's the community members that are here, stakeholders that are here, because they're stakeholders, have the opportunity to address it before it sits. So I don't know if you provided an ability, capability for them to write a question or with a paper or a pencil, or just a suggestion. Just a suggestion.
If there's no objections, I think I agree with Mr. Rodriguez, but sometimes our workshops can be lengthy, and then waiting at the end, I realize people have to leave sometimes. So I think I agree with Mr. Rodriguez. Are there any objections, any of the board members? That after a slide presentation, do we allow questions from the audience? Any objections?
Just to be fair, so it's fresh.
As long as it's meaningful, like.
Mr. O'Hanlon, is that permissible?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so then we've already, there's been several slides on elementary and the middle school. So before we go into the high school, are there any questions from the audience regarding the slides that have already been shown?
She gave the class ratio. We went into the DOI and they knocked out what the state required. So now we don't have a cap on what the classrooms are. I know for a fact I have my kids in the school. This is the number that I'm pulling off of the sheet. Some of these classrooms have 30 children. Some of them are 35 children. At the high school, at the middle school level, some of the classes were 34. I brought that up to the superintendent a couple of times. So for them to sit here and say that it's 17 to 1, that is not true. That is not true. These classrooms are overstuffed. These teachers are overworked. And it's very hard and it's causing conflict between the children because there are too many kids in the classroom.
So we would like a question, right? If it comes down to a question.
How
ma'am.
are we getting those numbers?
Okay, fair question.
The numbers are actually derived from what the enrollment is versus the number of teachers on the campus. It's an average itself, a student. Whether it's not a guesstimation, it's an average over, just like from the paper last night, on that back side with the staff, the student and staff sections, those are averages. So it's looking at the total enrollment of the campus, and then the number of teachers that are on the campus, and then they take that average. So it's not going down the list and picking off the class schedules and looking. It's the student to teacher ratio average.
So it's not really a, like you said, Mr. Roscoe, this classroom, science class has 34 kids to one teacher. This other classroom, math class, has 25 kids to one teacher. So it's not an actual classroom by classroom count.
It's not an actual classroom like that, and you're right, because some of them, like you were saying, are those numbers, some of them are an one, depending on the, so when we look at it, we look at the enrollment and the number of professors as teachers.
So some of these classrooms can be overcapacitated as we speak,
Some of the, we don't have a.
because it's not specific to,
Yes.
as Paula said,
It's
each
not,
class.
we're not over the.
You're just getting a count
requirement.
of
Yes.
teachers, a count, and then just getting average, and then that's it.
Yes.
So
And-
really, there was no in-depth study on each classroom to help us understand the strife that maybe a teacher's going through, or the children are going through, and how they're feeling left out, because those are some of the things that our constituents are telling us.
No, so not for this report, there was not.
But should have been, it really would have been helpful, correct?
I think what I would have expected was to be actual true numbers of what actually exists now. Not averages, what it could be, but actually where do we stand now? That's what we should have.
It's also important to consider sometimes it's the program itself. Like certain programs have higher enrollment than some other programs. Yeah, these are good numbers. I mean, these are numbers that carry higher kids. And then the other thing is that by the state, that there's no cap once you get past fourth grade. And so we definitely try to make sure that we keep our student to teacher ratios as low as possible. Just this year, we've increased the number of teachers in our classroom. Just like at Shepard, we knew that we were overstaffed. I know that you folks brought up a concern. We followed up on that concern immediately, and so we tried to ensure that we brought on teachers on board. So it's not just a black and white issue. It's a give and take issue. And as enrollment drops, or as kids enroll or unenroll in the classes, because sometimes they drop them, sometimes they switch their schedules, we try to accommodate as best as possible. Sometimes we lose teachers, and so for whatever reason, whether it's not personal illness, whatever the case may be, then it puts us in a bind for a while. But as soon as we can, we've been making a concerted effort to keep those enrollment numbers up.
So the path of least resistance was just getting the teachers and the attendance, and just getting average, and that's it. When again, the stakeholders are asking us to be accountable and transparent, and saying, what are the specific numbers, because we are a district of innovation, so there's some barriers, there's some lines that can be crossed. And having a daughter graduate last year, and she attesting to that, there are so many kids in my class. Sometimes it's hard for me to concentrate or get the necessary attention, and it seems as that it's still carrying on.
And it's not by no means that we do not care. We care greatly, and this is why we listen. And this is why we.
So this data is not fair. It's not accurate.
I completely understand. It's also important to note that we do have to work with the constraints as well. And so it's not for the fact that we're not being empathetic or anything of that sort. And in my view, like I said previously before, this is me personally just walking in, seeing what we have, understanding the culture, understanding the problems. And as the problems are brought up to my attention, we've been mobilizing and trying to make sure that we keep our numbers low, regardless of the program.
I think it's just that it's hard to digest these numbers in such a big public forum setting, and then really try to believe them when we know this is happening. But on paper it says this and it looks nice and rosy, but there are problems because of overcrowding in the classrooms.
And I agree what you're saying about, especially with the expectations that we do have and what we want for all of the campuses and all of the students. So what I did was I went by how the state does it, what I work with the paper. If there's something more specific of a type of breakdown, then knowing that, I most definitely will do what I can to, give it to the superintendent at that point.
No, I completely understand, the task at hand, but I also have I've had two kids that have graduated in the past 2 years from South San, and it's the same feedback. there's a lot going on, they're overcrowded, et cetera, so it's not something that's brand new, it's something that's been trending, that's been on.
Also look at the aspect of comparing ourselves to other districts. I know we haven't done that yet, but it's actually something we might be interested in, comparing ourselves to the neighboring charter schools, or even neighboring ISDs across the state, or even regional.
That has to do with enrollment.
We could look at enrollment, we could look at socioeconomic status, we could look at property value to the students. We could look at very.
As long as, we understand where we are, where it's at.
Well, I think a pertinent question to ask is what's the state capacity level for classrooms and what grades are those impacted in?
I didn't bring my paper report from last night, but I can get that from that.
Well, the state average is, you can't go over 22 kids.
Oh, that's up to one grade.
Right,
Up to fifth.
After fifth grade, there is no cap technically.
And then what are just averages overall in any school setting, and let's just say in San Antonio, what's an average middle school classroom look like, and what's an average high school classroom look like? Because I don't think that we're gonna be so out of whack if we compare ourselves to other middle schools and other high schools. Now, if we're talking about specifically Homer and Gilbert, one classroom or a specific setting where there's, an overage of kids in a certain setting, then we can bring that up and talk about it. But it's, to ask administration to decipher every classroom, I don't think is fair admin either. We gotta understand that.
Again, I think what I'm saying is, have the least resistance. Just make it simple and then just put it up there.
But my question is, what would you specifically like to see the report to be, so that if we're comparing averages to other middle schools and other high schools, what are we asking here?
Accurate information. I mean, they've just said that it's an overall snapshot and it's not a clear and true picture of what it actually is. I mean, short of having that information, I don't know if they're stating it that way, I don't know how else to, we want accurate, this problem, Madam President, is also giving examples of, the data is not accurate, it's not, you just want accurate data.
So if you don't want them to divide the total number of students by teachers, I get that. But the enrollment is the enrollment. The kids are the kids. That's how many kids are in the schools.
Right. So we identify how many are specifically in the classroom, and that's how we identify which ones are overcapacitated, and then why the kids feel like they're being left out, and that's why they leave.
So what you want is that's what I'm trying to clarify for admin right now, right? So we asked the right question is, what kind of report do you want to see? You want to see a school-by-school breakdown by classroom?
And let me respond to that. Because I've been here the longest, and I asked for a lot of reports, because Dr. Savetta can vouch for that. But we have asked in the past, and he has provided, actually, through PEAMS, every campus and every classroom, not necessarily the teacher name, but the grade, and how many students in that classroom to that one teacher per grade. And we've asked for those reports, and we've gotten them in the past. And that will tell you which teachers have 22, 25, 30, and it can be done by campus, because we've got those kinds of reports.
That's what should have been afforded.
And please understand, this presentation again is designed to just get the conversation started. It's not about being adversarial per se. We're not here to work against you folks. We're here to help you. And so we want to meet those needs. And so if you're asking information in a different way, then we certainly can work and try to get that for you. It's not because we don't care. It's not because we're not putting the effort into this. A lot of time and effort goes into gathering data as we still have daily operations to run, as we still have higher campuses to address, and the quality of instruction to improve. So it's not because there's any sense of malfeasance coming from our end. Especially me just walking in. By the way, for the record, I am not Dr. Saavedra, I am Dr. Flores.
Thank you.
As the name still is brought up. So I just want to again say that the intentions of the administration are to definitely listen and to definitely meet those needs and to provide the kinds of outcomes that we're looking for.
Okay, I think so we can move forward with this, because the families are here. I'll take one more question on the slides that have been presented, and then we'll move on. Stacy, anybody else have a question? If not, then I will right ahead. Karen?
I have a question, and I want to preface it with a quick comment. It's nice to see this finally being addressed, because when I was on the board from 08 to 12, I fought for our schools, all of our schools, and I said the enrollment is coming, I said the new housing is coming, and nobody would listen to me except Connie Prado and maybe one other, especially Mr. Durbin. The less said about him, the better. But it just, so finally, it looks like we finally have a board who might actually look at the real facts, the real numbers, go out there and drive around the streets around here. I have trouble getting out of my own subdivision right now because of housing growing up all around us. They're surrounding Valley Forest on all three sides. And that's just one of the many new buildings that are going up left and right, which I predicted because I requested a demographic study back in, was it 2010, I think? And they showed that the growth was going to be coming. As soon as Toyota moved into our district, we knew what was going to happen. And it's taken a little longer than I thought, but it's here, people. Y'all better get ready. We're behind the 8 ball, severely behind. And we need to get caught up, and I think you're right, Ms. Prado, we have got to get moving on this. We don't have time for wait weeks and weeks between for the next one, and then weeks and weeks to the next workshop. And meanwhile, we dicker around all this stuff, and nothing is getting done. We need to do something. We can talk to the blue in the face, and trust me, I can. However, we need to take action. We need to do what is needed. And what is needed is West Campus back. What is needed is another middle school. What is needed is another elementary school. We need those schools back that should never been closed in the first place.
We want our schools right back.
We need to know that yesterday. So my question is, I know, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little off track here, a little bit. So my question is, I'm starting to wonder about all these numbers we just looked at, because it's like they're skewed for what you want us to see. More so than let's be accurate. I want to know the reality. I want to know accurate numbers. And I do want to know how many students are in each classroom, because just lumping them all together per campus and doing an average does not begin to do justice to some of the problems that I've been hearing about for some time now.
Thank you, ma'am. I think at this point, we've asked for reports, and Mr. Ibarra's help us clarify exactly what we want to see. So
I have a question before we move on, please.
Yes, Ms. Flores.
Thank you, Ms. Flores. And the question is of Dr. Flores. Dr. Flores, you've been here several weeks already, since the middle of October.
Yes.
And you have gone to every school already, at least 2 or 3 times.
Per week.
Okay? So you're also walking those halls and you're talking to administration and teachers. Do you see, I mean, has that concern come up from administration at individual campuses, that they're crowded or that they need more teachers? And obviously you address the part about the teachers, and if they're needed, certainly, you know, you're filling those positions. But what is the overall, how should I say, pulse of the schools right now, is what the administration is telling you at each of their campuses?
Good point to bring up. So I make it a point to try to visit at least 2 to 3 campuses per week, because it's important to know what's actually happening in the schools and not just always be in my office looking at a piece of paper and just numbers. So every time that I visit the campuses, my personal observation, and this is why I'm very cautious about just even my own personal observations, I have to rely on a mix of data and observations as well. I see that we have low student-to-teacher ratios in the majority of our classrooms. At the elementary level, especially, I see a lot of good instruction happening. I see teachers that are teaching. There's a lot of great things that we have in our schools. And remember, I'm still getting to know the culture, getting to know the place. I also make it a point to visit with principals at every time. And I don't think that I have yet to deny any principal who's requested an additional teacher or a reading specialist since I came on board. Because right now, my main concern is to make sure that the campus is perform academically. So whatever they need right now, this is what my intent is to give it to them. Because if there's anything that I can do to help on my end, then definitely. But I also caution about here taking my own observations as to be law, as to how we proceed moving forward, because it's in our best interest to be responsible, because we have to be responsible for the taxpayers and their funds, and we have to be good stewards, and especially my job. I know at the end of the day, you folks are elected, but I'm chosen as the professional to come and give you folks the best advice that I can, and I'm not taking that lightly. I'm not just reading it off the paper. I try not to do that because I know the kind of impact that it has, because then I get to see and talk to parents, and they'll tell you. And so I try to listen as much. Like I said, it's been 90 days for me, and it's been a whirlwind. A lot of changes have been happening, and I'm not using that as an excuse. All I'm saying is if you give us enough time, we will get it right, and that is the goal. We try to get it right for the community.
Thank you.
Okay, I think board members, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next slide. Please, Dr. Flores.
Thank you, ma'am.
On to the next area that we thought was important to take a look at in looking at the district. I've been working very closely with Mr. Becerra since January, focusing on operations with him. We've met, want to discuss some deferred projects, some things that hadn't occurred that are important to us in our district. So one of the items on there is the HVAC. So the average life of an air conditioning unit, and this in the chiller, is 12 to 15 years. So we've got 3 campuses, 3 locations where we've got units from 2002. This is the most comprehensive, 98% of their units there from that time frame. We were slated to have them replaced back in 2014. That never actually occurred. It was an estimated $1 million project, but we never actually did that. Going forward, we have it at Shepard, 74% of the air conditioning units being from 2002 had a $460,000 estimation, and 5 pumps, over half of their units needing to be replaced all the way back to 2014 as well, $250,000. So with these projects, we can keep an air conditioning unit running longer than its average life expectancy, but the operational time, the people that are skilled to provide service is limited. We have to we get to a point where we have to call individuals out on service to keep these units running. So these are things that are traditionally refreshed or preventatively replaced on a larger scale than we can get into a school district. Moving on to roofs, we looked at an average roof life for the type of roof that we have at 20 years, and we've got 3 currently that are over 20 years that haven't been addressed. These are partial roofs, they're not the entire roof systems. At Christ White, the CTE building at the high school, they're 23 years old. And in the future, we have quite a few systems coming up that will need replacement. So we would like to consider some type of refresh program on an annual basis. Whenever, I believe it's 2024 is a year where we'll have a very large portion of our district's roofs needing to be replaced because they were done in the bond package, but there was not a rebuild structure built in, not a 10-year facility plan, not a long-term plan to continue to fund it out of so these are all projects that are in occupied schools that we will have to address.
I have a question on that one
Yes,
slide,
ma'am.
if I can, Mr. Shepard,
Yes, ma'am.
please. I don't see I don't see Hazen, I don't see Evans, and I don't see the West Campus building.
No,
So
ma'am.
where are their maintenance projects in order to get them repurposed and reopened?
So, when we were looking at this presentation, we were going off of the current situation that we're currently facing, so that we can have a baseline understanding of where the district's at for those discussions. To continue those discussions so that we can understand what else we have to consider when we're making those decisions.
Okay, then I have another question. We have obviously done an assessment of all the campuses. It looks like that need HVAC units. Is that what
We
you're
have
focused on?
not done full-scale facility, we would love to have that done. It hasn't been done, I believe it was 2015, and we feel like we're in need of that so that we can build a large 5, 10, 15 something type of plan, and then every year update it, execute and update. That's something that has us recurring as far as an ongoing process to prevent them from becoming degraded.
Okay, so knowing that we're going to be discussing the repurpose of the school campuses, have you been to Kaizen to check out their HVAC system?
I've been at Athens occasionally more than the other.
Okay, so what is the condition of the HVAC systems at Athens and at Kaizen?
So the situation that happens currently is, as far as a replacement cost there, I don't have anything for you. What I can tell you is that we had a number of vandalisms occur there, and we are going to need a very large project to get Athens back up to how to needs for air conditioning purposes. On Kaizen, I don't have that data right now.
Is it not true that the thefts at Athens from the HVAC units, those are being covered by the insurance?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
it was like a $500,000 cost to replace those HVACs.
Yes, ma'am.
And the insurance is covering that.
Yes, ma'am. We could use those monies to
Absolutely.
replace those, or you could use them for another purpose, if you so desire.
Absolutely. And so you have not done evaluation at Kaizen.
As far as the average energy revenues, I don't have that.
Okay, would that be important to know when we're coming to discuss these repurposing of facilities?
It's very important discussion. Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely. And so what is the, how about the West Campus building, which is the West Campus building? What is their situation as far as the HVAC unit?
So this campus had a substantial amount of funds put into it in the 2010 timeframe, shortly following after that. So it is one of your new facilities at the district.
So that HVAC system is in perfect condition. We don't have to, we
I
can
would-
spend
I
a lot of
would-
monies into it right now.
I would consider it in perfect condition.
Okay, bad choice of words. It's not a priority at this moment then.
I mean, my office is there, I've seen, we've had air conditioning in my office, so I mean, there's the photos there as well, but it has not been evaluated as closely as the schools are contemplating.
I'm sure if there was no heat or air, we would hear about it.
And it would be on the slide, so is it fair to say if it's not on here, then it's not identified, or it's not, so clarity, question. Is Athens and Kaizen and West Campus not on this slide because they're fine, or because we haven't gathered the data?
So what we present here on the slide is if we can make an administrative choice.
I understand, I'm asking specifically about Kaizen, Athens, and West Campus not being on this slide.
I'll try to answer that a little bit. I was talking about us providing the information of the current campuses that are in the office.
You need to speak up, sir.
And again, no, I understand, but the purpose of the workshop is to address those specific facilities. And I understand, Dr. Rose, we're providing an overall baseline as we're trying to get, but it would have been beneficial, it would have been great if we would have had those assessments specifically because that's what the workshop is about. So it's fair to say that if it's not on there, they deemed it not important enough to,
That those facilities are
That
in
they're
the
fine.
condition that could be reopened.
specific to the
To the
HVAC.
I mean, are we able to get estimates, reports of three campuses for maybe a next meeting? I mean, I would like to have that information for those three campuses.
Something along the superintendent's recommendations.
And it's great, it appears that we're turning the corner and changing the approach to being proactive. And you spoke to the availability of technicians or whatever engineers that come out to service these. I imagine that exists no matter if the HVAC is 10 years old or brand new, because we have faulty equipment, you have failures, whatever the case may be, that's going to be constant regardless. And then I don't know if we have service agreements with, that regular maintenance, that keep those things running. I'm sure we have an issue, we place a service call and the tap comes out. I don't know if that exists. If it doesn't, then another opportunity. And I understand we're identifying we need to do business, so.
This is an exhaustive list of everything.
No, I understand.
And this doesn't cover life safety devices, this doesn't cover riser rooms, it doesn't cover fire alarms, it doesn't cover intercoms, it doesn't cover bells, it doesn't cover sewer systems, drainage, it doesn't cover a lot of things. It's just looking at very large things that we thought would be important for you to consider when making decisions.
Thank you.
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Yes,
Mr.
Ms.
Schuman. Thank you. Mr. Schuman, did I hear you correctly? I wrote it down, I was having a hard time hearing. Did you say that by 2024, the majority of the roofs would need to be replaced?
That's correct.
So that's about 5 years down the road. So when you said majority, is that 10 schools out of 13, or 12 schools out of? Do you have like a ballpark figure of what the majority would be?
That's pretty much the rest of.
You need to speak up, sir.
That's pretty much the
Thank
rest of
you.
the campuses.
Pretty much, I'm sorry?
The rest of the campuses that are not listed?
That are not in that list?
Correct.
Okay. So of the roofs here, it's only Price, Dwight, and the South San Career Technology roof. So that means the campuses that are not listed then are the rest of the campuses that need to have a roof replacement within 5 years.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
So
thank
their
you.
average life will be up.
Yes.
They can still operate, they can still continue, we can still patch them, we can still drag them along, and not take a preventative or proactive
Right.
approach. You can kick the can down the road, as they say.
Right,
If
but
so desire.
right, like everything else, you patch it up, you have to continue, going and fixing it
Yes.
anyways.
And
Okay,
ideally,
thank you.
when we approach that, we're not gonna go and start servicing 10 roofs all at one time. I mean, that's, is that reasonable?
It would be ideal. The
Right.
ideal situation would be to create a refresh program,
Right.
a multi-year facility plan,
Thank you.
which we do not have.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there any questions on this line?
I have a question on the South San High School roof. What building are we talking about?
Specifically looking at the CTE building.
The CTE building.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that's it, so we're not, it's the one building in the back, the CTE building, it's not the new building or any of the other ones.
There's over a dozen buildings on that campus. This is just looking at that one building.
How did you get CTE and not any other building?
Because of the age of that building.
Okay, but it was all built at the same time, and they, except for the new high school, and were the roofs done after what you said, or can you give us a timeline as to which ones, all the last buildings are older buildings except for the new one?
Again, this is not a comprehensive list of everything. This is-
Okay, I was just curious, if you were pinpointing on certain things.
This is a project that we deem as for something that should have or should be slated to be done soon.
Okay, and what I'm concerned about is that we all know here, we're all community members, we're all taxpayers, our children are here, our grandchildren, former board members, so we know the language. And my concern is that you're sitting here giving us, we all know what the district means, and we know it needs work, everybody here knows that. But the reason we're here today is about the repurposing of West Campus, Athens, and Hazen, and we have no information on that. And then you try to throw out about the AC units, but we know that those are covered by insurance. We've heard nothing about the schools that were closed. We're hearing about everybody else and all the other buildings, and you're saying, well, we should take a whole look at the whole district and what we're looking at. Well, if we're going to take a whole look, we should have added those 3 as well. Why are you going to take more time? When they closed the schools in 2017, you had this room packed with people not to close them. And now they're afraid to come because they're not heard. We're not going to stand for that this time. We're not going to stay stagnant. We're not going to wait any longer. Something needs to get done. And getting information that we as taxpayers already know, I mean, we're wasting time here. We need to know about the 3 campuses that are up for question. And these board members, everybody sitting at this dais or these tables know the conditions. We know that there's needs. You tell me what those 3 campuses are missing, because they ain't been on none of the list that you're talking about. And if you're saying whole, they should have been included.
My big question is, why? Why is that even there? Why has this stuff not been done? This is stuff that I had, that I was getting on maintenance reports when I was on the board. I left the board in 2012. And I demanded that some of this is done. And if people ever wondered why in the world I was so against that bond, the whole reason was because it made no sense with all this kind of need going on. Why in the blanky blank did we spend $58 million on one school when we had 11 schools in the district that all need something? That's what I'm asking. Why is this still here? Why has this stuff not been done? Should have been done back when I was on the board. I fought for it, but there was 2 of us on the board that agreed with stuff like this, and everybody else had their own little clique going on.
And I think to use Garza and Baumberger, I think that's something we shouldn't be doing because there was actually discrepancies with that firm. So
Yes.
we should not even be using Garza and Baumberger.
Thank you. We greatly appreciate and encourage the interaction in the community, but if we can state the comment and then state the question.
I did.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Thank you, I appreciate it. If we just keep that, then we can move forward, and then I'm sure Madam President would afford an opportunity at the end of the presentation to pick up any last minute questions.
Well, I think that was the intent originally, but then I think we all agreed that as the slide comes along,
Right.
they have a question that's asked now. I think, let me refer to Ms. Thomas's question. And in all fairness to Dr. Flores, he's only been here a couple of months, and I understand that. It was the previous administrations that failed to maintain our facilities. But, so we, now the taxpayers, are having to pay for that lack of, priorities. So now it's costing us a lot more money. And let's face it, that's a lot of repairs, and the state is not going to give us more money. That's not going to happen. I mean, if it does, I'll get on my knees, but I doubt it. So the only way to cover the repairs of not only Athens, Kazan, and West Campus and these facilities is if there's a bond or a TRE. And right now, the way it stands, if these campuses do not open, there will not be a bond, and there will not be a TRE. So we just don't. And the other way to generate revenue is bring the kids back. And those kids will come back if you open our schools and you generate revenue.
I feel like the approach should not be holding the community hostage for previous administrations' mismanagement, misguidance, lack of being proactive. We need to have an agreement. We need to take action, and we need to do what we need to do so that way we can help our superintendent. So we can help, and I see it, and I sympathize, I really do. And so he needs our help, and the way we're going to get the help is the way just Madam President described, is let's open up these campuses, let's start generating revenue, let's get our kids back, then we can go to the community and say, look, we've shown some good faith, we're trying to rebuild trust, and now we need help because we're here, we see the facilities that are going to need the roofs in 2024, and let's help us get those things fixed, and let's help the superintendent as much as we can from that perspective.
And that's, if I may answer, this is the whole
Use the
thing.
microphone.
And the entire point of what we're doing, I mean, I understand where you're coming from. Our job is to just paint you guys what the immediate
Yes, sir.
needs are going to be,
Yes, sir.
based as we're looking, as we're pulling underneath the carpet and we see the mess that is there. We're trying our hardest to understand that what the cost is going to be, what our pressing needs are going to be for the campuses that we currently have open, where our kids are there right now. Because when that HVAC breaks and we can't repair it, those are kids that we're affecting today. And I know at the end of the day, like Ms. Prowse said, we're unlimited funding. We're not unlimited, but unlimited funding. And so that dollar can only go certain place, either to cover the pressing needs or to focus on expansion. At the end of the day, our job is to provide you a comprehensive understanding of all the needs and all the the wants and desires, and then for you folks to make an educated, a really truly educated decision based on the data, and then we can move from there. So that's exactly the intent. So I'm just afraid that you're going to continue to be disappointed with the presentation because it only focuses on our pressing needs.
Right, and I think that's what the point I was trying to make at the beginning. The presentation was for the repurpose of Athens, Hazen, West Campus. It was not supposed to be a district-wide assessment of all the facilities or the facilities that you target. So I expected to come tonight to see, okay, Athens, Hazen, West Campus, we checked the HVAC unit. If that's something the board wants to open it, it's in good condition. If it's not, then it's going to need some electrical, it's going to need the kitchen repair, these are the things it's going to need to repurpose that facility into whatever it's going to be. Hazen, the same thing, and this is what's going to take. If we're going to do West Campus, this is the plan, and this is what it's going to take, and this is the cost. But there's nothing in the presentation about those facilities. And that's, I think this is really good information. And I know we go back to the previous administration, but we did a needs assessment. We did a needs assessment when he came 5 years ago. A detailed needs assessment. That's probably sitting somewhere getting dust, or we took it with him. But of all the facilities, we even did a wish list by campus of what would each principal like to see fixed in their facility should there be a bond. So all that has been done already. And I know that you have to, some have gotten older and you've got to add them to the list, and that's good to have. It's good to have when we get money through a bond or a TRE. You say, okay, we already have our needs of all the facilities, this is what we have, this is how much money we need to go out for a bond. But until this is repurposed, that's what I'm saying, I'm just disappointed. This is not what I expected as a presentation. I mean, I want to know what it's going to cost us. What do we have to budget for to reopen Athens, reopen Hazen, and reopen in transitional phase West Campus? That's what we need to know. And that's the decision we have to make. How is it going to be repurposed? What's going to be the cost? And when can we get it done?
And I completely agree in that term, the only issue that we look at it from the administrative standpoint is that we still have the responsibilities to meet these other needs.
Absolutely, but where's the money?
So, and that's exactly where we say, where do you want to focus it on right now? Where, with the kids that we have, the schools that we have right now, take that into consideration, and then start looking at the process of what it looks like to reopen a school, reopen a campus, repurpose, because the process doesn't just happen overnight. Because there's a lot of aspects that you need to look at. So if you want to save the time and the effort for the rest, you could just move on over to the end of the presentation where we talk about the aspects to reconsider. If you want to look at the aspects to reconsider, because we could be here all night until like midnight. I want to send everybody home at a decent time today. But if you just look at the aspects to reconsider as to what it typically takes to reopen or repurpose a building in general, a facility, these are all the aspects that you need to look at. You need to identify the overall positive financial impact on the district. You have to develop a timeline. And on average, on a realistic expectation, it's somewhere between 18 to 24 months. We could try to push it to 12. I mean, these are all things that are realistic. We're here to work. But these are some of the things that conduct a facilities assessment, the feasibility study on those specific campuses. That's exactly where we need to go. Developing the committees for the broad stakeholder input and community support. That it behooves us to run it by all stakeholders, developing committees, developing two-way community meetings so that folks can tell us exactly what it is that they're looking for. And then just the staffing plan, because even if you talk about a small footprint, you still need a principal, you still need a counselor, you still need a nurse. There's no way that we're going to have one campus without a nurse, because we're going to hear it. Even if it's Athens, even if it's kids, they're going to look, well, how come we don't have a nurse? Well, because there's only certain amounts of funding that we can count on today. And the bond and the TRE sound great, but I know that TREs have failed here before. And so I can't quite just say that, take it for granted that it's a done deal, because that would not be a responsible recommendation on our end. So when you look at budget development for those campuses, that's realistic. When you're looking at the realignment of school attendance zones, that's realistic. When you're looking at the kind of academic program, if it is going to be a school, those things are realistic that I can't just unilaterally just give it to you and say, this is how we're going to do it, because I'm going to hear it from the people. When it doesn't work, because you're going to say, hey, that superintendent just made it on his own, and that's not the way that we need to proceed moving forward. So when you look at the enrollment and the marketing that needs to go with that, I mean, all of these are plans that are deep, long processes, the processes that we need to definitely come together and develop and establish so we can get our priority, because even transportation needs, all these things are lists that really need to be considered as we move forward. What we were just trying to show you at first was the snapshot of our pressing needs as us coming in, new people coming in, looking and going, oh my God, these are all the issues that need attention. The routes, the facilities, on the campuses where kids are at today. And so if we want to move in that direction, by all means, but please understand that it can't just happen just because of me signing off on a piece of paper and saying that it's done. It's just not that simple of a process. Not that I'm trying to make excuses. I just want people to be cognizant that if we're going to make a sound decision, let's make a sound decision as a team. And so this is where we're at. This is essentially directly related to the repurposing of the campuses.
Absolutely.
And the plan. This is something that's relevant to you. Well, because we were focusing first on the foundational aspect, on our pressing needs as an existing organization without expanding our footprint as we're still contending with declining enrollment. So it just begs to differ. I mean, I beg to differ as far as we need to plan, and it needs to be a well thought out plan that needs to be vetted through the stakeholders, that needs to be vetted through our staff. I will speak to people myself. I know that you folks will go and speak to folks yourself so that we can all come together and build the right plan for the future. Because I'm right there with you. Because I do understand how painful it is to close down schools. Those are one of the most devastating things that can happen to communities. I mean, it is one of the things that you try to avoid. It's like massive layoffs. You never want to do that. So you avoid those at all costs. Now, I can't go back and fix the sins of the past. I can only tell you that I'm here to work with you as we move to the future. And so, but before we move to the future, I understand that there's a lot of feelings behind it, but my job is to look at the facts. Because nobody else will. And then if it, and I'm just as hopeful as you are that it'll be successful, but in the event that it does fail, somebody has to take the ownership for that. And I will feel responsible because I didn't lead the board in the right direction. So this is where we come down to it. This is the basis of our argument here. It's not that I just walked in. I feel your pain. I hear it from the community. I take every single parent that comes to me. I talk to every teacher that comes to me. A lot of folks that have been here a long time, and they tell me, there's been so many wrongs, sir. Can you help us make it right, sir? Yes, by all means, let's make it right. But if I'm going to change the trend, then I need to do my due diligence with our team, with our staff, not because we're lazy, not because we don't care, not because we're trying to steer folks in a different direction. We're just trying to be honest and open about what it is that we have before us. So if you want to get to the point of the situation, this is what you have to consider. And so if you go on the next slide,
before we
okay, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, before that.
Yes.
Before we move from that slide, does anybody at this table know if this list, and I know this is something that you put together, was identified in some way, shape, or form to see if it was a responsible decision to close the campuses? Where's the data from that? Where's the data that we used, the previous administration used, previous board members made decisions on? Anything on this screen pop out to anybody, those that were here, the data that was answered and provided that allowed you to make a decision to close those campuses?
Can I answer that?
No, not yet. And then secondly, yes, again, glass half full, fundamental question for me. I feel this is a fundamental question. Genesis survive, right? So we need money, right? The question is, yes, we need to identify the money that we currently have and the money that we don't have. How do we generate revenue? Is a very important question. And if anybody's been to the previous board meetings as recent as yesterday, we see where our financial standing sits. If you're paying attention, you know what funds have money, what funds don't, what funds are going to continue to generate revenue, what funds are going to continue to have money that's going to increase. As evidenced in the reports, we've identified budgets that weren't all necessarily used up. Based on the reports, we've identified that we've generated revenue more than expected. So to me, that's another trend that we need to look at to say, let's not just talk about money we don't have, let's talk about how we're gonna generate revenue to get the things that we want to get accomplished and need to get accomplished, right? So we can make it happen. Like somebody just said earlier, we can talk about it till we're blue in the face. We need to start moving. Bottom line is we need to start moving, we need to start answering these questions, start generating those answers so we can get these things done. Because there's a perception, and I heard it from an administrator today. Administrator, right? That services our kids, that's grown up here, lived here, works here. There is a massive misrepresentation and a perception of the financial status of South San ISD. Because of the previous administration that went out there and gave so much inaccurate information on a consistent basis that's what's rooted in the community. We don't know what we're doing. Southside doesn't have any money, but if you come to the board meetings, it's public information. There's money there. We're generating revenue. Let's generate more revenue by increasing enrollment by opening these campuses. I haven't seen anything on here like Ms. Prado says that's identifying what is it going to take to open Kazin, to open Athens, and to open West Campus. So let's ask the questions on how we can get this accomplished. And the number one thing is, how do we generate revenue? To generate revenue, our number one thing is enrollment. How do we increase enrollment? How do we get those kids back? Because that big dip, it's the data. We're data driven right now. That's what we're talking about. That big dip, idea and closing our campuses. So in order for us to generate revenue, we're going to increase enrollment. We need to open these campuses back up. Again, glass half full. How do we get it done? How do we generate revenue? The reports I've been reading and that I'm privy to is we're doing that. We're doing that. So there's a misconception about how South San ISD is, and I hope everybody can hear me. There's a misconception, because I want to read it tonight and tomorrow morning. There is a Gilbert Rodriguez, Board of Trustees, Vice President, is saying that there is a huge misconception about the financial status of South San ISD that's been driven, that's been in existence, that was driven by previous administration, that's been entirely inaccurate. Read the report. Read the reports. Read the reports. We have money. We're fine. Now, otherwise, we would have got the rating that we did in the report that we just got yesterday.
When I'm looking at this list of 1 through 10, I'm looking at conduct of facilities assessment and feasibility study. So knowing that on the agenda it was supposed to be specific on repurposing for Kazin, Athens, and West Campus, you failed us in getting that information. So number 4 says develop committees for broad stakeholder input and establish community support. I don't know how much of a strong statement 4 new board members says that the community spoke, that we don't agree that you closed our schools. We came and said we want to see the schools open, and we got elected. And then we're looking at a couple other numbers. Number 10, transportation needs. How long has our director of transportation been here?
But most importantly,
But what I'm saying is that does he have a plan that existed prior years that he can implement and install so that transportation needs are met? We need to utilize those resources.
So I'm glad you made it up. So we also talk about average daily attendance, right? Which also drives that number. So when we cut transportation and the kids can't get to school, we take a hit. We take a hit on average daily, which affects our revenue, right? So cutting transportation was a bad move because that also impacted not only the ultimate enrollment number, but the average daily attendance. If it's raining outside and it's cold outside, and we're forcing these kids to walk when they were previously being bused, that's going to have an impact on enrollment. That's going to have an impact on average daily attendance. It's plain and simple.
Okay, Stacy, go ahead and ask your question.
It's kind of hard to ask the question, but
Okay.
more of a statement. I went to school, I had to go to Old Town Sand in '72, and we were bused. There was a lot of head bumping and fights and all kinds of stuff that went on then. I mean, hear about it so much now at Old Town Sand that I don't hear that we're talking about the kids. I stopped my other things that I had to do tonight so I could be here because I've never been to one of these. And so to me, West Campus is something that we need to put on the front burner because of all of what's going on now. And I don't want to hear in the news that, like I do something just recently about another school, that someone went home because they were being bullied and they committed suicide. And because I was going Old South Sand for that 2 years until West Campus was built, I saw, and then I hear things from the kids themselves that are going on there. And it breaks my heart because I think that we should be thinking about our kids and actually and I can't help but get emotional when I think about it and talk about it. I moved my kids into a different district because I didn't want them to be subjected to what I was. So if we don't think about taking those kids over here and trying to ease that pressure that's on them, then I don't know nobody knows what's going to happen. We have to at least give it a try, since we didn't think that it was a good idea to close West Campus. So I just hope you'll take that into consideration and think about that, because I know you haven't been here that long, but some things are getting said that need to be discussed. So that's basically it. I just needed to ask why we're not talking about the kids. Why are we just squabbling about the buildings and everything? To me, that's something that we need to put as a priority. So I hope you guys will talk about that amongst yourself eventually too, because it's an important factor. If we don't have kids, if they're doing all that, we're not going to have kids to fill these schools because nobody's going to want to even finish school. My sister and brother, they quit. They were tired of all that stuff. So, you know, I just hope you guys will really think about that.
On your, I see in there about your committees, I can't speak to clearly because it's kind of far, but number 4, I think it was maybe because you consulted a few weeks right before you came in, so it's been more than 90. So I met with you, about the first week, I think it was, and you had mentioned committees, and I had brought to you some of the concerns, just like I'd like to bounce off of what she said. We keep saying that our problem here, why are we losing kids? I'm very active in the community, not just in my district, but in the entire community. And what she said hits home for me. I ask those questions. We block walk all the time. We're the ones who get out there and let the community know that there's meetings, that this is happening, that they're trying to do this. The district they didn't go tell the community that they were going to close these schools. They put it on the website because that's the legal thing to do. And they tried to do it quietly. We went and knocked on doors and said, they're going to close your schools. The district didn't do their part. They didn't go tell the people. And then for her to say, you want to know what? We're not losing. And all due respect, Mr. Schuman, you cannot compare us to IDEA. IDEA gets to pick and choose who they take. A public school does not. We deal with special needs, special ed, and over there, if you mess up, you're out. Guess what? Public schools don't get that gift. You don't get that option. You have to teach them. By law, you've got to teach what comes into our schools. So you can never compare a public school to a charter, ever. Way more difficult things than a charter ever will. They give you the gold, they come on in the nice buildings, but who's messing with Sally and George who can't read because they have the learning disability? It ain't IDEA, it ain't whatever else is out there. It's South San ISD in this area. fact, I think we're too concentrated on what we are offering and not what's lacking. And like she said, it's our children. It's our children. I'm just going to put a guesstimation out there of 70% of our student body that's not in the early college program, that's not in these campuses with these special programs. We have a lot of students who can't even get there. And why? Because there's too much going on internally. We have fight after fight, and when those campuses closed, it got even worse. We have people going to hospitals. I can show anybody here every single day, especially on Zamora. And Zamora, Casey kids went into Zamora every single day. There is a fight there. Kids are being abused, they are being tortured, and I've met with you and I've told you, and you keep saying, well, we're going to form a committee. You've been here, you said, what, 90 days? It's been more than 90 days, but I met with you a week after being in here. Those committees haven't been formed. The fight, the South San High School, like she said, my daughter went through that. My daughter attempted to take her life because she felt no worth because they were dumping food in her hair at that school. Had this campus been open, that wouldn't have happened to my daughter. She would have been with her peers. But she's on the other side. But y'all, she's right. We need to focus on the students. Our students aren't passing, and we're losing students not because of what we don't offer. That's not the reason. It's internal. And until you address that, you're going to have a problem. And how do we gain them back? We bring in community programs. We get the people involved, and you hear their voices like they are here today because they haven't been heard ever. They've been ignored. And to sit here and say, well, we know what we need to do because we've come to these meetings. It's time to move. You've been here 90 days, sir, with all due respect. I like you've been very cordial. But at the end of the day, this is affecting my kid, her kid, her kid, her kid, and everybody else here. And we're the taxpayers. These are our buildings. And we have shown time after time that we wanted them open, that we fought tooth and nail, and nobody listened. We're paying for these buildings. We're paying the salaries. Everybody here that has a job is because our kids are here. So it's time that you listen to us, and we want our buildings.
I'm definitely glad that you brought up the issue of community partnerships and community services. And that's precisely why we push so hard to get the grant from TEA, so that they can come and give us the monies that we need to provide the mental health services that we're looking for, the coping strategies. It was something that was still very nebulous when I walked in. It wasn't outlined. And I can tell you, we have Ms. De Leon here who can vouch. It was something that was developed as I started visiting the campuses and seeing the issues. And by all means, I agree with you. We definitely need more services. We need more community wraparound services for our schools because our community needs it. So we're working in that direction. And so we definitely care greatly about what you're saying.
Sir, when you speak about TEA, you're talking to deaf ears here because we had a conservator for how long? And our district continued to plummet. She did not do her job, and we paid her thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars. So that's the least that TEA could do for us.
But they do have money, and we're just thankful that we were able to get that grant because it's money that are going to go back.
They gave us some of our money back.
Okay, hold on, Karen, Ms. Olvera.
Yes, I suggest that y'all close the administration office at West Campus because I understand there's a lot of rooms there that are not being occupied. Open up the administration again at West Campus, and we would get some of our students back. And of course, you know, there's houses being built or apartments. We can get more students into West Campus, and that's where some of the money can also come. Thank you.
I see a lot of new faces on the board and the superintendent. You may not know this, but Ron Durbin, who was the superintendent at the time I was on the board until we fired him, admitted to me that his main reason for pushing closing West Campus was so South San would be a 5-day school again. You know how many games they've won since then? Maybe 5 in all these years since then. You don't know the animosity, the heartbreak, the hard feelings that are in this community here over that whole mess. Me especially. I was on the lawsuit that fought to keep our school open. I was part of the group that fought so hard, and when I couldn't get anywhere and I found out the guy in my district was running again for re-election, guess what my entire campaign was? Here's his voting record. You saw how hard I fought for our school. Who do you want to represent you? I won by one of the largest landslides South San had ever seen. And that was my entire campaign. That's all I did.
And she didn't say anything bad about anybody.
No, I never will, because I'm a Christian woman and I will not take that step. That's not who I am. But the fact remains, you need to understand where we are all at. Only a few of us are brave enough or whatever, Patagonis, whatever, to stand up and talk about this stuff, but out loud. But I can guarantee you, I bet every single person in this room feels what we've been saying. I'd be willing to bet. So you need to know where we're at. And I'm upset with Ms. Prado too, that I came expecting to actually talk about West Campus, Hazen, and Athens. And what have I heard? Everything but. I understand your point about we need to know where we're at now. I get that. And I'm not disputing that. Except for some of the inaccuracies I was seeing up there. That needs to be addressed. But we also were promised to talk about those 3 schools. And there's not one thing in any of this paperwork that even says their name. So we were misrepresented, we were misled what the purpose of this particular workshop was. And I, for one, don't appreciate it. I gave up my Bible study to be here, and so did she. And she goes away from me. And for what? I've heard a lot of stuff I've known. I'm seeing, unfortunately, a lot of the same stuff that I saw when I was on the board. Exactly. That's exactly it. So we need to stop talking and stop rehashing the same old stuff. We need to take action. Please, I'm begging you, take action.
Any more comments or questions for Dr. Flores?
There's a gentleman behind you, Madam President. He's got his hands raised.
Yes, sir.
My name is Louis Cousins. I'm the class 82 from West Campus.
Good.
Now, I'm listening to everything you're saying. And for you being the new superintendent, you inherit a whole lot of crap. Straight up. And I can go all the way back to when West Campus was built, to when it closed, and to where it is now. And let's get real, it boils down to money. And if you don't get ahead of this, we've already lost some of the district in Southwest. We're losing the other half, the ideal. And then there's homes and everything coming. And the other thing y'all haven't mentioned is the military presence.
That's right.
You have military, like that retired military here, that has an opportunity to buy homes and have your kid go to a local school, not bust all the way to South San. The same thing that happened over 20 years ago is happening now. The same things you are talking about, they did back then. Same slide presentation, just more up to date. And the end result was they built West Campus. And then until one person, we all knew who that one is, that's why he doesn't come around any alumni. But because of that one person, West Campus was closing, just like that. And then we were bumped up to a 5A. You step on the campus, it looked like a college campus. And now the money's being played with because rezoning, new buildings coming in, ideal schools, people are pulling their kids out, they're sending them other places to get better education. Because of what was in the past, we brought on subpar teachers. We had subpar repairs at West Campus, where all the good repairs were going to South San. So I understand you're stepping into a whole lot of mess and you're up to your waist in it. And only thing I can tell you is some of the board members were around. Some of them are new, and I'm glad to see the new ones come on because you need to bring back the schools. You really do need to bring back the schools because if not, if you don't get ahead of it, all of these schools are gone. Next thing you know, everything will be Southwest or Ideal or some other school. And this will just be a zoned out area and ISD will just fade away. But we have to get ahead of this because if we don't, we're gonna lose it. And again, you have the military presence. Everything I've heard, I haven't heard anybody trying to tap on Lackland's door, because I know Lackland would support bringing it back. Because that means their military presence will be here, and it would end up, sometimes they may end up staying here. Because when West Campus was open before, there was a lot of military. People ended up retiring. That's why some of us that went in the military, the kids, are back, taking care of the parents. So,
Truth.
it's on your own now.
Open up West Campus.
Okay, so that concludes our questions on the slide. Board members, are there any other comments, questions? Yes.
Dr. Flores, on number 2, so you're saying that it's going to take 12 to 18 months to just open the 3 campuses or just one school?
Well, that's something that we're still developing. Again, this is where you have to start developing your game plan for it. And so it takes time to start looking at the issue. It's definitely about moving the needle on it. But typically, when you're going to do it the right way, because you have to consider all the safety, security aspects, you have to consider the buildings are up to code, everything, all the aspects that go with it. If there's a lot of planning that goes into it. So typically, when you're going to reopen a campus, if that's going to be the case, then that's the typical timeline that it takes.
And just curiosity, did it cost money to close the schools in a short period of time?
Did it cost you money to close these?
Yes, I mean,
Yes, because we lost kids.
did it, how can I say this?
Saved.
I mean, do we lose money, or did it cost money to move these kids around? Or give time to give these kids?
I can't answer.
Yeah, I can speak to that, if that's okay, Dr. Flores, if you don't mind. The schools were closed without sufficient notification and were done in 6 months, maybe 6 months. And there was no choice given. This was the plan. These are the campuses that were going to be closed. And at the time, they even did the bilingual cluster. They moved all the bilingual kids from the clusters, including up here, into one campus. The closing of the schools, the bilingual clusters, the taking away of the bus transportation, all that went quickly. It was shoved down the parents' throats. And that is not the way that you do business. And I feel confident that Dr. Flores is not going to do it that way as well. But he also has to realize that the clock is ticking. Ideas, buildings are going up. They're going to have those additions by the fall of this year. They're already recruiting. We've seen flyers, TVs. Come and go to your kids. If you enroll 25 kids, you get a 55-inch TV. There was another one recently, they're raising money with 5K runs. They're aggressive in their recruitment. Why can't we be aggressive? But you've got to open the schools. If you open the schools first, just get them open. Get these kids back from Zamora and from Dwight, because there's a lot of problems in those campuses. Get those kids back and then start recruiting by golly. Savannah had teachers block walking all over the district. I don't know, I think they did up here too. We are South San. It was done not even a year before he closed. Placards, South San, we're a South San home. And then they closed it. You know, what kind of a message does that send the community? There's no trust. You know, they can't, figures that he presented were just false. So we have to rebuild the trust of the community. And if you don't rebuild that trust, and you don't open these schools, you're never going to pass a bond. And you're never going to pass a TRE. I can tell you right now. And you need revenue, and it's just like Mr. Rodriguez said, revenue comes from students. Students come, we get money. We get money, we have salaries, we can pay our teachers. But if we don't get out there and recruit aggressively, and take advantage of all these 5 developments. Ladies and gentlemen, you all were in the meeting last time, but there's going to be close to 1,000 homes coming up next year. 1,000 in all the area of Valley. You guys are blooming. So we got to capture those kids, and it's like you said, if we don't, they're going to go somewhere. In fact, I can tell you, one of the developers, Leonard Homes on Ray Ellison, they're reselling homes. 13 homes have been sold. And I said, wow, that's wonderful, those are our kids. Guess what? She said, 18 months, but let's get the plan moving. Let's start moving now and get these buildings open. You come to the board, bring us your budget, what's it gonna cost, and let us support you in getting this done. But let's start moving on it.
I'd be interested to know the feedback. It's been happening with our 9th grade Choice Academy meetings that we're so aggressive, which is a great thing. We're aggressively marketing, promoting, announcing meetings. You tell me that if you don't use that same communication system, the same aggressiveness of what we do to broadcast and market and everything, all the other academies that we have and all the other programs, you tell me that we send out a communication about whatever is the case, the feedback that we're going to get. We need to stop being selective. As I understand it, we're open borders as well, correct? We're open enrollment, right? So that means we can get kids that are at other school districts to come and enroll, right? So what are parents looking for? Choices. What they don't want to come to is they close their schools down. I mean, and we talk about it all the time. We close the schools down. Why would I want to go to South San? Change the culture, or you're going to let it change you. It's time for action. It's time to start moving. It's time to start getting our kids back. It's time to exceed expectations. It's time to expand. And no, South San is not going to go away. Not on my watch. It's not going to go away.
Dr. Flores, I think this was the last slide.
Right.
Is there any other data or information that you have? Will that conclude the workshop presentation then? Okay, before we conclude the workshop, we've had an opportunity to hear from Mr. Rodriguez and Mr. Flores, and Ms. Peña has spoken, but I'd like to hear from the other board members.
No, go ahead. Okay, so I voted last night no in the rushing part of updating that resolution. I think as a team of 8, as we say we're gonna work with the superintendent, it should have been done together. The schools were closed in a rush, and look what happened. We're paying the consequences now. And if we rush to reopen them, I don't want that to happen again. We're gonna pay the consequences again. Our kids deserve a solid plan. They deserve something that's gonna be successful. My kids go there, your kids go there, all our kids are benefiting from what we're gonna do. So if we do this in haste, I feel it's not gonna be a solid plan. We need to develop a strong plan for these kids. That's how I feel about it. And I support them opening with a good plan.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Ms. Flores?
Yes, thank you. Dr. Flores, on the slide, are these your recommendations that you're saying about conducting of facilities? Is that?
Well, this in itself is just for folks to get an idea as to
An idea.
what it takes when you fully vet the process.
Okay, well, I want to give the superintendent the time to come back to us with a budget and a future budget on what it would look like to open up these schools. Because there needs to be a revenue model, and the community needs to have input. And as Ms. Martinez has said, I am all for reopening schools or repurposing, whatever the word is, but we have to be reasonable, we have to be smart about it, and because we're not a rich property tax school district, even though we're saying we're getting 1,000 homes, they're not built yet. Okay, families are not in there yet. So what is this model going to look like, the budget, at this point and in the future? And that's really what my concern is.
Thank you, Ms. Flores. Mr. Ibarra?
Question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My position has always been the same as I've always wanted to reopen the campuses. We closed them on that premise that we were going to repurpose them and open them. Under the past administration, we never gained traction. And it wasn't because of lack of trying. We had the committees out there. We brought recommendations to the table. He didn't act on it as quickly as we would like to, and he didn't have the same enthusiasm, which is why we went and looked for another superintendent. So I put all my confidence in this superintendent. What I'm waiting for is a solid recommendation from this superintendent. I don't think we've given him an opportunity to even get here, look at the place, come up with an overall plan of action and present it to us. there's a lot of things that are gonna go back into opening the schools, and everybody knew that. And the reason that we are not giving them a chance right now is not really apparent to me. Nobody's really given a solid reason why we can't wait for a superintendent recommendation. He's been here for 3 to 4 months, and all we're asking is, hey, can this guy come in? Can he build his team? Can he develop a plan and present it to us before we move? That's all that my vote has always been. From the very beginning, I said, look, there's a process in place, and we should follow it. And we tried to change the way we govern. We tried to change a lot of things on how we're doing, board antics. When I first got on this board, the way board conducted business wasn't very nice. And I think everybody was sitting in the stands when we saw some of the board antics that were going on back then. So the professionalism, the politeness, and how we handle ourselves up there is totally different now than what it's ever been. So all I want is to be able to work together as a team. Right now, what I've seen is that there's an agenda on the table, and it's being pushed down the throats. Hey, all I'm saying is I'll sit down and I'll talk with reason about opening the campuses again, because that's all I've ever wanted. I didn't want to close the campuses. Under the last administration, there was no other option, and there was no money the way that the presentations were. I mean, you were there, Mrs. Prado.
That's right. And the other option was to vote against closing the schools. That's the other option.
That wasn't a viable. And so I stood by the decision, and I went to the community, and I spoke to stakeholders about my position. And I held several meetings at St. Juan Church and other places to speak to people. So I've never shied away from the public, and I've always stated my opinion. So if there's any problems with me, I don't mind talking to anybody one-on-one in a setting or in a group setting, like I am right now. I never shy away from my position. I'm accountable for my position, and that's what a trustee is, to be trusted, and that's what I do. So I'll sit here and I'll debate, and we can bring up our points in a professional manner and talk about our stance on anything that has to do with education. My focus has always been education here. It's always been the best for the kids. My kids attend these schools. I have 3 girls here who have attended every aspect of South San, elementary, middle school, and high school. I have a daughter that's in the culinary program right now. She's at South San. I have another daughter who's in a health science program over there. It's not, I have a child that's in elementary who's in the gifted talented program at Price Elementary, where it's overcrowded or whatever other, issues are going on, and I deal with them every day. So it's not like I'm oblivious to what's going on in these campuses. I am very well aware of everything that goes on in the district. I don't sit back at home and just read the paper. I'm involved. I'm an involved parent. I've been in PTA all my life. So again, my position has always been the best thing for the district, and to open these schools back up in a manner where they were going to serve the community in a better capacity than what they were. And that's all I'm asking, is to give the superintendent an opportunity to come with his recommendation, to build a plan with his team and present it to us so that we know the financial impact, the leadership impact that it's going to take to open a school. Hey, the last thing we want is to hire a subpar principal or something like that for those schools, or to take good talent away from one of our existing schools because we're going to rush into opening a school again. I don't want to do that. I just want a plan. I just want our superintendent, who we hired to lead our district, to give us his recommendation. He has not had an opportunity to do that. That's all I've been saying this whole time.
Anyone else?
I just have something to say. I do have a daughter that does come to South San, and she tells me how it is frustrating for her as a student that she does not get the proper attention from the teacher. And this is my daughter. I understand her frustration because I've been through it. And for my daughter to tell me, Mom, the teacher, doesn't really pay attention to what I need help, and it's because there's so many students in the high school. And I want all the kids to have the same attention, the same you know, just to have the same attention from every student, to have a smaller class, so the teacher can focus on a student that is struggling, that is, you know, needing help with either, you know, whatever subject. But my thing is that I don't feel that all the students in high schools or elementary are getting that. I mean, it's just, I will admit, you know, before I was a school board, you know, trustee, I took my kids out of South Stand and took them to North Side because I wasn't thinking that they were getting the right education. Because my kids would tell me, you know, we're not getting the attention from the teacher that we need, and they were failing. And I mean, I'm getting a little emotional because it just brings me back what I had to deal with my kids. My daughter now, you know, she's, you know, kind of concerned with this. And that's why I'm behind this of opening up these schools, especially the high schools. I mean, I don't, you know, so many kids, you know, my daughter even tells me about the bullying. And bullying is a very serious thing. A lot of people do not think it's serious, but it is. I mean, and we need to open up another high school because with all these kids in just in South San, it's not helping, you know. And I understand there are students that are very bright, you know, but we got students that do not, you know, have that same knowledge. You know, they struggle. And I feel like those kids should be more than kids that already, you know, talent, you know, smart and everything. We need to focus more on the kids that are under needs. And that's my concern with the high school. We need to be separated, and so the kids can be focused on more. And my thing is for the kids. I'm here for the kids and, you know, to support our children. That's my passion for my kids. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Goldberg.
Question?
Okay, we're going to conclude the session unless anyone else has any.
Yes, actually, I do, Madam President. Did anybody else need to comment?
I just want to, if I may, chime in on what Ms. Flores just said about the families are not here yet. These buildings, these homes that are being built, they're not here yet. But you can talk to the developers and to the home builders. They're bold, and they have said, we're going to move quickly here. We want those buildings, those houses built by the end of 2019. That means by that time, by the fall of this year, we're going to have families in those homes. And we're not going to have a neighboring high school to give them, offer them. It helps the marketing in those homes, but it helps us to bring those students here. Do we know if they're high school kids? There's no way of knowing. Do we know if they're elementary? We don't know. But neither does IDEA. They don't know, but they're building a building, and they're saying, I'm building, and they're going to come. That's the mentality we have to have. Not, oh, what if it doesn't work? If you don't try it, it's not going to work. So we've got to do something. Build it, open it, and they will come. That's right. And then, hold on, okay. And then I think Mr. Ivana said, well, we can't wait. Why can't we just wait for the superintendent's recommendation? That's why we had the workshop tonight. I was hoping to discuss some sort of numbers or something to say to reopen Athens or Payson or West Campus. This is what it's going to take because it's going to need this, this, and this. Obviously, it didn't happen. I apologize if I misled anybody on the agenda that it's about to repurpose. Obviously, it's about a needs assessment, so that's on me, and I apologize for that. But time is of the essence. A calendar school cycle is different from a calendar cycle. We only have, what, 9 months out of the school year. We can't wait. If we miss not opening this year, we're going to lose all the kids that are there. And the kids that we could bring back and not have to go back to IDEA, we're going to lose them. And if we lose more kids, we lose more revenue. And then what do we do? So I'm sorry.
I'll go ahead and yield to her, and then if you can come back to
Yeah,
me.
I wanted to answer, you know, what Ms. Bella said about the idea schools, and that they have the money and they build new schools. Yeah, they do, because they have the money and they have big donors.
And tax incentives.
We don't have big donors, and we don't have the money. That is why I asked the superintendent, and I want to give him the time that he's due, because I do not want to overstep my boundaries. My role is as policymaker. We hired him to do the job and his staff, and we need to give him the time to put together the information that we need. Most importantly, the budget, the amount of money it's going to take to open up these schools, because I feel responsible as a trustee for the taxpayers' money and how it's going to use.
Absolutely.
Okay?
But I think we're hearing from the taxpayers and their money.
And we're hearing from some taxpayers, but I think we need to open it up for all taxpayers and all across the district, because it's going to affect the entire district.
Wait, hold on.
She didn't do that when she
Hold on. The taxpayer's voice was loud and clear. Loud and clear.
Yes.
Why do you think Mr. Munguia is not here? Why do you think Mr. Luis Rodriguez is not here? Why do you think whoever, Ms. Ostiguin is not here? Because they closed our schools. How much louder can they get?
There were community meetings, and they had them in separate
And
areas
they
of
had
the
petitions,
schools.
petitions.
And
you all voted to close them, so they closed that.
With the information that we had, okay? And again, it has to do with the budget, and we have to be careful how we use our monies.
Exactly. You heard the audit last night, and what did they say? We have a surplus, we have more money now, 5.8 million unassigned fund balance that's there. Plus, we have close to 4 million in the tax subsidy fund that can be used to open these schools. All we need this budget, and will not affect the next budget.
And that's why I want to see the budget
Well,
we have
that's it.
now,
What is it?
but we're going to give the superintendent the time so that he can give us that, along with what the future budget is going to look like when we open up all these schools, as well as what our needs are going to be down the road with all the facilities that are going to be needing upkeep.
And that's fine. I think the needs assessment was good. We should have another workshop to come back and hear all of the facilities and their needs. So that once we build the trust of the community, we open their schools, then maybe they can trust us to have another bond. So we can fix everything that we need to have. Because right now,
Thank you.
Two more.
Thank you, Madam President. I am in complete agreement with everything that I'm hearing from every single board trustee. And thank you, Ms. Flores, you afforded me the perfect segue into my feedback. Again, in yesterday's meeting, Ms. Flores read off, and rightfully so, her in reading off the board policy, Texas Education Code, because we certainly don't want to be overstepping any boundaries. We certainly don't want to be doing the superintendent's job for him. I am in complete agreement. So I'm always prepared. I always do research. I always take the time to ask, try to anticipate questions, try to anticipate in order to be prepared, right? So that inspired me, that encouraged me, that motivated me to go back and read those particular policies, local, Texas Education Code, so I can just confirm that I or either one of us is doing exactly that. So if you afford me the opportunity, I'd like to read a couple of them. So board members, authority, this is local, BBE. Board authority. The board has the final authority to determine and interpret the policies that govern the schools and, subject to the mandates and limits imposed by state and federal authorities, has complete and full control of the district. That's board authority. Now I would like to read BAA legal. A trustee, as a body corporate, have the exclusive power and duty to govern and oversee the management of the public schools of a district. The trustees may adopt rules and bylaws necessary to carry out these powers and duties. That's from Texas Education Code 11.15, B and D. That same Adopt an annual budget for the district as required under Education Code 44.004. Legal board status, powers, and duties also state that we are to monitor district finances to ensure that the superintendent is properly maintaining this district's financial procedures and records. And I'll say again, this is law. This is not subject to interpretation. This is what we are obligated to do as a member of, as a board of trustees. Also, we have the responsibility of adopting a policy providing for the employment and duties of district personnel. That's straight from Education Code 11.15. Specific to the repurposing of facilities, which is why we're all here. Board legal status, powers, and duties. Again, legal, BAA. District property. A board may acquire and hold real and personal property in the name of the district. All rights and titles to the school property of a district, whether real or personal, shall be vested in the trustees and their successors in office. That's from Education Code. So having said that, I am in complete agreement with everything that everyone has said, specifically affording the superintendent to come up with a plan, to come up with a budget, to come up with a check. It seems we have a good start on the checklist. And as I just skimming through those, we probably have a head start on a quarter of those, maybe half. So another piece. I've had 2 kids that have graduated from South San High School in the past 2 years, back to back. A lot of concerns, a lot of, and I want to thank my wife, she stood up in the back, can attest to that. So ongoing issues and concerns, and I understand previous superintendent, previous administration. Nothing changed. It's progressively gotten worse. I have 2 kids that go right here to Allen B. Shepard, and I can assure you that I'm not going to take action. I'm going to get in the game, I'm going to roll up my sleeves, and I'm going to take action, so that way they have the opportunity to be receptive and be beneficial from these changes that we're going to make for the better. Lastly, I understand the elephant in the room is Kaysen Middle School. There are certain entities and individuals that are just dying to get their hands on Kaysen Middle School. So let me remind everybody here what our obligation is as a Board of Trustees by the Texas Supreme Court and our state constitution. Yes, our #1 priority is the students in our district, the communities in our district. That is the #1 priority. That is what we are tasked, that is what we are obligated, that's what we signed up for. Okay? So again, yes, we are going to afford the superintendent the opportunity to create a plan, to come up with a budget, to go down those checklists and come back to us with a recommendation. And this is how we're going to do it. Madam President, are we at the agenda part where we're going to... Okay.
I think Dr. Flores has concluded his presentation, so the workshop portion of the meeting has concluded, and now we have the discussion and possible action. #1 is discussion and possible action to consider the superintendent's recommendation concerning the repurposing of closed campuses. Dr. Flores, is there a recommendation?
Ma'am, that would be a recommendation that I have for you at this moment.
Do you want to read the recommendation?
Sure, not a problem. I recommend that we conduct a facilities assessment and feasibility study, and that we establish a process for developing repurposing committees, develop a timeline, recommendation for board consideration for the next regular board meeting.
Okay. Board members, are there any questions or any discussion on Dr. Flores' recommendation? No? Okay, so this is an action item. Do I hear a motion to accept or approve the recommendation presented by Dr. Flores?
I move to approve the recommendations presented by Dr. Flores as he read them.
Okay, Ms. Flores has made a motion to approve Dr. Flores' recommendation. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Martinez.
Madam President, if I may,
Yes,
I would
Mr.
like to make a
Rodriguez.
substitute motion.
Okay, Mr. Rodriguez has a substitute motion. If you'll read your motion, Mr. Rodriguez.
I motion that we table the superintendent's recommendation for further discussion.
Okay, there is a motion by Mr. Rodriguez, a substitute motion by Mr. Rodriguez to table the superintendent's recommendation. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Flores. Okay, so at this time, we will take the substitute motion first, and there is no discussion on this item. So, Michelle, I know you're in the back. Roll call, please, on the substitute motion.
Ms. Mandy Martinez,
Abstain.
Mr. Luis Ibarra Jr.,
No.
Mr. Homer Flores,
Yes.
Ms. Shirley Ibarra Jr., Ms. Connie Prado,
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert Rodriguez,
Yes.
Ms. Elma Flores.
No.
Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, let's continue.
Actually, Mr. President, I have a motion that I'd like to present.
Okay, so now Mr. Rodriguez has a motion, because his motion previous was a substitute motion. Yes, Mr. Rodriguez.
Once again, I like to be prepared, and in doing just that, I make the following motion. I move that the Board of Trustees directs the superintendent to develop a plan for possible implementation utilizing current revenues, which would incorporate the following elements. Reopening Athens Elementary, including bilingual students as a regular campus for the 2019-2020 school year, and the reopening of Kaizen Middle School as a regular campus, including an academy of choice for the 2019-2020 school year. Further, that the current 8th grade class at Shepard Middle School be assigned to the reopened West Campus High School for the 2019-2020 school year, with the intent of adding a grade level until the class of 2023 is realized. Additionally, the Board of Trustees previously approved the lease at the former Olivares Elementary and the memorandum of understanding with the Edgewood ISD regarding alternative school students. The superintendent should develop a plan to address each circumstance. Further, that the superintendent's plan be presented at a special call meeting of the Board of Trustees during the week of February 11th, 2019, at a date, time, and location determined by provisions of Board Policy BE Local. Now, go ahead.
Okay, did that conclude your motion, Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Rodriguez. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Flores. Michelle, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Madam President, if I may, before
Yes.
the roll call and the vote is taken, based on the local and legal policies that I read, is it okay if I ask you, counsel, and I can repeat it if I can, if I need to ensure that we are, as a Board of Trustees, and me specifically, since I'm making the motion, are within sound legal foundation to do just that.
Yes.
Ms. O'Hanlon?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Rodriguez and a second by Mr. Flores. Michelle, can I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Mandy Martinez,
No.
Mr. Luis Ibarra Jr.,
No.
Mr. Homer Flores,
Yes.
Ms. Shirley Ibarra Jr.,
Yes.
Mrs. Connie Prado,
Yes.
Mr. Gilbert Rodriguez,
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay, do I hear a motion on adjournment?
Move to adjourn.
There's a motion to adjourn by Mr. Rodriguez. Oh, I'm sorry.
to vote? Did she call?
Oh, Michelle?
Mrs. Elma Flores,
No.
Okay, motion still passes. Okay. So, motion to adjourn by Mr. Rodriguez. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second to Mr. Ibarra, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, the time is 8:16.